So welcome to this episode. I have my friend Lucy here to talk about a very fun movie from 1975.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you agreeing to come on. And let's just start it off with watching this classic trailer from 1975, and then we'll actually talk about the title.
You've seen all kinds of movies, but you've never seen anything like the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Let's do the time warp again. Let's do the time warp again.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show is wonderfully weird.
I'm your new commander. You now are my prisoner.
They're probably foreigners with ways different than our own.
It's fabulously freaky. It's a trip to transsexual Transylvania.
I'm just a sweet transvestite
The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
from transsexual Transylvania.
The story is strange.
For tonight is the night that my beautiful creature is destined to be born.
The songs are super.
Science fiction.
The scenery is smashing. The cast is completely crazy.
This isn't the Junior Chamber of Commerce, Brad.
There's a mad scientist named Frank N. Furter.
Come up to the lab and see what's on the slab.
And Rocky, his incredible creature.
I knew he was in with a bad crowd, but it was worse than I imagined.
A sinister servant named Riff Raff.
I remember doing the time warp.
And Brad and Janet.
My name's Brad Majors.
Just a couple of clean-cut kids.
This is my fiancée, Janet Weiss.
Touch it, touch it, touch it, touch me. I wanna be dirty.
Eddie. Magenta.
When shall we report to Transylvania, huh?
Columbia. Dr. Scott.
Great Scott!
So give yourself over to absolute pleasure. See the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Let's do the time warp again.
You gotta love how long the trailers used to be in theaters. Nowadays, you're lucky to get a 90-second trailer. And that thing was almost, 3 minutes?
I
2
think
minutes,
so.
56 seconds. So, obviously, we're talking about the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which, do you know what really unique feature or high honor the Rocky Horror Picture Show has?
No, which one?
It is the longest running movie in pretty much cinematic history because it is still playing, even in quarantine, in at least one theater every week.
That actually makes sense. It has a very, very, deep cult following. I know that. And I think everybody loves it. Even if they don't want to, they love it.
Well, there are those who just think it's too weird and have never really experienced Rocky Horror in the proper way, I think. Now,
That's
have you ever
true.
attended a midnight showing of Rocky Horror?
No, I never got that chance.
Have you ever gone to a stage show?
No, that was a different movie. Never mind. No, never got to go to that either. I was getting
Okay.
excited, but nope, that was Sweeney Todd.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I was able to attend a local production of Rocky Horror, which up until I think this year, I think due to COVID, they're unable to actually have it this year, but I don't know for sure. But we have I'm going to call it a multi-purpose theater because not only do they show movies, they've had stage shows. Heck, they've even hosted boxing matches at this location in back home in Montana. So if you ever get the chance to really see a great stage performance version, I highly recommend it. Do you ever watch any of the Holderness family music videos and stuff?
No.
They're big on YouTube and Facebook. The reason I bring it up is the father of the family, Penn Holderness, actually was in a stage production last October, I believe. And it was just fun watching his videos from doing Rocky Horror.
Okay.
So definitely recommend if you get the chance. So since you've never gone, do you know about the props?
Well, I know about props, but I don't know specifically
The
that
audience
particular show.
participation props, I mean?
We did that in Sweeney Todd, so I have experienced that, but I can imagine what it would be like for Rocky Horror.
All right, well, let's talk about them. So when we start the film, we see a pretty simple wedding. And traditionally, as bride and grooms come out, everybody's throwing rice.
Mm-hmm.
That is your first audience participation prop. Is you
Okay.
throw rice in this while you're watching.
Okay.
Your second prop, a newspaper. So when Brad and Janet are caught in the storm, Janet covers her head with a newspaper. The plain dealer. At this point, you should cover your head with a newspaper as well, because that leads us directly into the third prop, which is water guns.
Oh.
They are usually used by members of the audience to simulate a rainstorm that Brad and Janet are caught in. Now you see why you need the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back in the day, and I say this because this movie and play really came out in 75. They say bring candles, flashlights. At this point, you can also use your 21st century flashlight off your phone.
Okay.
So during the There's a Light version of over at the Frankenstein place, you should light up the theater with your candles, flashlight, lighters. Just be respectful of your theater's policy about open flames, and remember you are wearing a newspaper on your head.
Yeah, I can imagine that being a very bad thing.
Next on the prop list, rubber gloves. So during and after the creation speech, Frank snaps his rubber gloves 3 times, and then later Magenta pulls these gloves off of his hands. You should snap your gloves in sync with each of these to create a fantastic sound effect.
Okay. That sounds like fun.
Noisemakers. At the end of the creation speech, the Transvanians respond with applause and noisemakers. This is your time to do the same.
Okay.
Confetti. At the end of the Charles Atlas song, the Transvanians throw confetti as Rocky and Frank head towards the bedroom. Just like the rice, it's time to let that confetti fly. Now, this is my personal favorite. Toilet paper!
Oh my goodness.
When Dr. Scott enters the lab, Brad cries out, "Great Scott!" At this point, you should be hurling rolls of toilet paper into the air, preferably Scott's brand.
That makes sense.
When they're at the dinner, Frank proposes a toast. Members of the audience should be throwing into the air, preferably unbuttered, toast.
Interesting.
Otherwise, things could get sticky.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, party hats. At the dinner table, when Frank puts a party hat on, you should do the same. During the song Planet Schmanet Janet, ring the bell when Frank sings, "Did you hear a bell ring?" During the song I'm Going Home, Frank sings Cards for Sorrow, Cards for Pain. At this point, you should shower the theater with those lovely 52 cards in a standard deck of cards. Now, on occasion, this bonus prop has been used, which would be hot dogs and prunes. It has happened on occasion that fans will throw hot dogs and prunes at the appropriate mention in the film. This should not be encouraged because it does attract rodents and leave stains on the screen.
Yeah.
That's why I said it
see
was
that.
a bonus prop, not recommended. But all the other props, I remember when I did go to the stage show, all of these props that I've just listed, with the exception of hot dogs and prunes, were widely being used. So I thought that was kind of fun.
It sounds really fun. I don't want to be the person to have to clean it up, though.
No. That's probably a good thing that this only typically shows at midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. In fact,
Okay.
I'm just curious, do you watch any HGTV? Home and Garden
Sometimes.
television?
Sometimes.
You ever see a little show called Love It or Leave It?
Yes.
Did you know Hilary Farr was in Rocky Horror, the movie?
No, I didn't.
She was. Let me pull it up here. Recognize our bride?
Wow. Okay. I would have never guessed.
I thought that was kind of going through things. Her last name wasn't Farr at the time. And I honestly don't have it off the top of my head here. But yeah, in the early mid 70s through the early 80s, she was an actress. And she still does occasional stage work. Like I know it was a couple of years ago, she actually played the Queen in a stage production of Snow White up in I think it was Toronto, but don't quote me on that one.
That would be a difficult role. Being called the evil queen would be like the most hated person in the whole movie or play.
Well, what's really fun about Rocky Horror and what I've researched is obviously this was originally a stage show. It was literally kind of being created as a way to keep some actors employed.
That makes sense.
Richard O'Brien, who plays Riff Raff, is credited as writing basically Rocky Horror. And he basically started off with one song. And the director just loved it. He was being approached to start production on another play, and he asked the theater group if he could put something on as everything's getting ready up in the smaller theater, and they said yes, and that was Rocky Horror, which did start with Richard O'Brien and Tim Curry. Yeah, Richard O'Brien used to spend winter evenings just kind of writing this out. Showed the material to director Jim Sharman, and they started working on the play together. Convinced the London Royal Court Theatre to give him a few weeks in the venue's tiny upstairs theater to actually put it on. It slowly got a following. It went to the West End, and then it made its arrival in LA. So what's one of your favorite things about Rocky?
Tim Curry. That
Did
was
you-
the whole reason I ever watched it, was because of Tim Curry. He's one of my favorites. But I'm glad I did, because it was really, I want to say, edgy. Like, for the time period that it came out, it was very not something you would see in mainstream. Like, now, everybody wants to be like that, I guess. But back in the 1970s, that was something that you wouldn't talk about or see regularly.
Well, this was his feature film debut.
Mhm.
Curry was actually trained as a stage actor. He had a few TV spots here and there, just small things. But it was Rocky Horror that actually turned him into a household name in a way.
And I am very thankful for that.
And I'm sure you've seen the meme that you can always tell how good of a friend you have by where they know Tim Curry from.
Yep.
And if Rocky's not on that list, it's a shame.
It's true. It's very true.
You know,
That was probably one of his best roles, honestly. Because I saw the remake of Rocky Horror, and they didn't do a bad job, and I'm glad they still included him as the criminologist. Like, he still got to be in it. But I kept watching the whole thing, like, how dare you stand where he stood? Like, there'll never be a replacement, in my mind. Like, he did such a genuine, it was a very genuine role.
well, it's funny you say that because the studio had somebody else in mind for Dr. Frank in Furter.
Who's that?
Mick Jagger.
Really?
Yep.
That'd be interesting.
Here's a couple wow, I didn't expect that. Mick Jagger had expressed interest in doing the part, but the director, which was Sherman again, he was offered a much larger budget if he was willing to get more well-known actors for this movie. He opted instead to have a more modest budget, and modest being, I believe it was $1.4 million,
That's very modest.
and a much tighter shooting schedule. I believe overall it took like 6 weeks to make this movie.
That's not very long at all.
No. And as a result, he wanted to maintain kind of the core group from the stage show that he's been working with since London, since he brought it to the US. And as a result, that's why we still have Tim Curry in it. And I hate to say this, I never actually saw the Fox Live Rocky Horror. I was meaning to, and then life happened.
Yeah, I understand that. It's not, I don't want to not recommend it, because, I mean, if you enjoyed the original, at least give it a try. That way you're not sitting there following the crowd with, it's not any good. They did a lot of like trying to pay like complete homage to the original, but you're not missing anything if you don't watch it.
My understanding is it updated a little bit, so some of the things were a little more PC to today's audience. Things got a little watered down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here's another surprising casting potential. Guess who auditioned for the part of Brad?
Matthew McConaughey. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea.
Okay, Matthew's a little young for 1975 at this point. But yeah, no, I can't even think of McConaughey as Brad.
I was thinking blonde. That's where I don't know.
Well, you're not too far off. How about white? As in Steve Martin.
Who?
Steve Martin?
Oh. That would be weird.
Yeah.
He's always been funny, though.
Yeah.
I love
this
this
is 1975, so his film career was just starting to take off. Guess who?
I actually thinking about it. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, thinking about the movies I've seen him in, I don't think I could imagine him being Brad.
No,
Or anybody in that movie, really. Because he's like, to me, a family man. You know, he does the family movies. And if he's done anything not family-ish, I've not seen it. Or funny, just straight up comedy.
So I'm kind of curious where you put The Jerk.
I've actually never seen that one. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. And I
Okay.
just assumed that it was more
Not family.
or less
I'll
one
say
of his
that.
normal movies. Well, I'll have to watch it.
Well, the criminologists, played by Charles Gray, they were really, really trying to get Vincent Price to play it.
Okay.
So that would have just taken this movie a little too far outside of that homage to, you know, B-class sci-fi picture show. I think.
Yeah.
But it would have been just amazing just having his tenor of a voice doing the time warp.
It's true.
But I think Charles Gray did a great job. Now, the character of Columbia and Magenta in the original stage production, they were one person.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
What happened is when this was being opted as a film, they basically offered little Nell, or Nell Campbell, the role of Columbia because she could tap dance.
That's fair.
She was actually working as a soda jerk in London at the time, and some producers kind of knew about her, or that she would tap dance while serving ice cream sundaes or something. So it was based off of that
Dinner in a show.
Dinner in a show, yeah. So as a result, that's how she got the role. And Patricia Quinn's character Magenta's dialogue got really shrunken. So on top of that, what I feel horrible about is that opening musical science fiction picture show.
Mhm.
She thought that was one of the greatest songs she's ever heard, and it was based on wanting to sing that she really signed on to do this. And then when they actually put it in the movie, it's Richard O'Brien who actually sings it.
Oh, no.
So yeah, it was kind of a bummer, but there are some other cool things about this, like Patricia Quinn's hair had to get sprayed every day. That wasn't a dye job to make it red. They were basically spray painting it red
Oh, that's awful.
to get that color.
Oh, could you imagine the fumes? Oh, man. Like spray paint is not a
Well,
nice
I don't
smell.
think it was actually spray paint itself. I'm just using that terminology, but Those
Also, like kind of like the Halloween
spray, yeah.
color. That still smells awful.
It reminds me of the 80s.
Yeah.
All that
Yeah.
hairspray.
Oh, washing it out and look like a murder scene in your bathtub every day.
Quite true. Now, in the stage production, Eddie and Dr. Scott were usually played by the same person because they're never on the stage at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But for the for the movie production, that's where Meatloaf played our character of Eddie, because he
I was actually surprised to learn. Oh, sorry.
Oh no.
I was actually surprised to learn that Meatloaf was in there because I didn't recognize him.
Well, what's funny in retrospect, if you think about Fox movies and cult status, there are two movies made by Fox that I would say fall in that category. Rocky Horror is obviously one of them,
Mm-hmm.
and Fight Club.
Yep, Fight Club. I knew him in that one, but in Rocky Horror Picture Show, I was like, "Are you sure?" And yep, sure enough.
Well, it's because of Rocky, Meatloaf, and Tim Curry, when they were doing the stage show in LA, they actually got to meet Elvis.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing some of the famous people, if you will, who loved Rocky Horror, including the late Princess Di.
Oh, wow. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah,
The people's princess.
Princess Diana was a Rocky Horror fan. The princess requested a meeting once with Tim Curry, and in an interview, Curry remembers that she told him with a wicked smile that Rocky Horror quite completed my education. So
That's cool.
and I'm sure you may have noticed, but throughout this entire movie, Grant Wood's American Gothic, that painting,
Mm-hmm.
has an homage right from the beginning to the end, with that pitchfork ray gun, and then just the way they were all standing there outside of that church.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that church had no middle?
Mm-mm.
They could only afford the front facade of that church.
Okay.
So as a result, all the interior scenes are a soundstage. So
Okay.
that church is not real, but the Frankenfurter Castle is, and you can now stay in it because it is
that'd
a
be cool.
working hotel.
That would be really cool. Probably expensive.
Yeah, I don't have pricing here, but part of the reason they loved that house, or as it was called back then, the old house, was it was basically being left abandoned. The owner wanted to actually demolish it, but it was being cited as a historical building, and as a result, he couldn't do anything with it. And when they were ready to start filming, they heard about it, and they're like, let's go check out this place. Instantly fell in love with it. They did add a couple fake things to it, like the glass ceiling dome. That's just a fake facade that they threw on for basically to simulate the dome roof over the lab.
Yeah.
And then
Kind of
they,
like Frankenstein's. I was going to say Frankenstein's, where, yeah.
in fact, that tank that Rocky's made out of, that was actually from one of the old, kind of 1930s horror films. That was one of the Frankenstein dummies actually in it.
Oh, okay.
So they were reusing some historical props, if you will.
That's really cool.
So,
It's really cool they were able to do that.
Yeah. Frankenfooter's voice was originally meant to be German, and Tim Curry actually heard somebody on the tube, as they call it, the subway, who had a really posh voice, and all of a sudden he's like, that kind of reminds me of the Queen. And as a result, he mirrored his voice to emulate Queen Elizabeth II and his mother. So that's how we kind of get that unique pronunciation of everything, and that it's just fun to watch. So
I can say Tim Curry has a wonderful voice.
now Tim Curry says he never thinks about it as drag for what he was doing, because it's not. It's just what people in Transylvania wear. So get over it.
I can say he wasn't in drag. It was lingerie and it looked great. It was kind of like people wearing tunics in Greece. It's just what they wear.
Now,
it was his tunic.
Interesting that skeleton in the coffin clock was an actual commissioned clock, and they were able to borrow it. I think they added the extra spider webs inside, but it actually sold at auction back in 2002. Now, I don't have the dollar amount equivalent. I just have what it was in pounds. How much do you think that clock went for?
Oh, a good couple million, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure the owner would have loved to see that kind of price tag, but it did go for a nice $35,000.
Okay.
Which still is a pretty decent payday.
Oh, yeah.
So originally the film was supposed to be shot at Oakley Court in Windsor, England, which was also used for several of the Hammer horror films like The Bride of Dracula and Now That the Screaming Starts, The Old Dark Horse, Murder by Death. But Oakley Court has now been turned into a world-class hotel where you can now stay. Okay. So, but just be aware, when it was being used as filming locations, it had no heat and no bathroom.
I can imagine.
Which then leads to, did you know Susan Sarandon had the flu the entire time filming this movie?
I did not know that. That's concerning.
Yeah, according to some, she might have actually had a case of pneumonia at the time. But
oh my.
Considering that place had no heat, she's literally running around in her underwear, and she's wet half the time.
That's so bad.
And
so very
yeah,
bad.
so as a result, she was actually sick this entire time.
Well, she's a trooper for just continuing on instead of being like, hey, I need to get better. So, I mean, I commend her for that.
Now, our Peter Hinwood, who played Rocky, discovered that he still had the Rocky hot pants in his home in the early 90s. He auctioned those off, and the Hard Rock Cafe snapped them up to add to their memorabilia collection. Guess how much they paid?
$25,000? I'm guessing a lot more. I don't know.
Well, once again, Peter would have loved that. It was only $1,000.
Oh no!
So, oh well.
I need to stay away from auctions apparently because I have no idea what's a good price for things, and I would overpay for everything.
Now, did you notice our Rocky has no belly button?
I did notice that. I mean, he was created in a lab after all.
Exactly. The makeup department actually made a special little belly button plug and then use makeup, obviously, just to take it to that next level of saying, yeah, he was created in a lab.
Like, he wasn't born, so he doesn't need the umbilical cord scar, so... I'm glad that they paid attention to detail, because I don't think I would have. I think I would have overlooked that if I was making a movie like this one without actively thinking about it, because, like, if you Frankenstein, he took parts of other people, so, I mean, the belly button would be there.
Well,
But-
even Frankenfooter says he used part of Eddie's brain for Rocky.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And when we do finally see Eddie first appear, he has that big gash across his eyebrow. So
Mhm.
now, do you remember when Rocky Horror was finally released on VHS?
No, I don't remember.
That would be in 1990.
Dang, 15 years later.
Guess how much that first VHS went for?
I don't want to. I always overball it.
Keep it under $200.
Oh, so keep it under $200? Okay, $150.
Still high.
Dang, see, I told you.
Well, I didn't want to say keep it under 100 because that would have been too ezy. It went for $89.95.
Wow, I was going to say 95, so I was still too high.
But it was in the ballpark, so. But it's just amazing. Like I said, 1.4 for the budget, 6 weeks to film. And for me, I think it's one of the best rock operas to come out of the 70s. You know,
definitely.
There's only a handful of rock operas I really like to actually say I want to watch or have seen. Rocky's obviously one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I would put Little Shop of Horrors in it.
Oh, I love that one. That one's a classic.
Tommy by The Who.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Wall by Pink Floyd.
That one freaked me out when I was a kid.
I can understand that.
It kept me off drugs. Yep.
There you go.
So I have Pink Floyd to thank for that.
There's a couple that had the potential, and I think the stage show was better. And the one that comes to my mind is Rock of Ages.
Okay.
I have the Broadway soundtrack to Rock of Ages, and I just think it's amazing. The only other Broadway show like that's been made into a movie that I absolutely love is Hamilton.
Okay.
And
I haven't watched that one yet. I'm not big on musicals, so I don't go looking for them. But whenever they are, like, whenever other people are watching them, I'll pay attention.
yeah, you got to at least experience Hamilton once, I think.
I've heard great things about it.
Yeah, Rock of Ages and Hamilton, I heard great things about it on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And once I heard the music, I immediately got both of those soundtracks. So I take my humble opinion for what it's worth, but both of the Broadway soundtracks are worth it. And I'm just thrilled that they actually filmed it as the stage show for Hamilton, where with Rock of Ages, they kept the overall story for the most part, but brought in Hollywood actors to take over the roles, and it lost some of the magic, I think.
I understand that.
So
I think that's what happened with the remake of Rocky Horror Picture Show for me. Kind of lost some of the magic that it had.
yeah. And it's unfortunate it happens. Tommy, like I said, also came out in 1975, and I would call that a classic. And it's more of a musical than even Rocky Horror. I don't think there's actual talking dialogue anywhere in Tommy, but I could be wrong. But
I've seen shows like that before where they just kind of sang everything.
fun fact, young Russell Crowe actually played Eddie and Dr. Scott in a early performance in Australia. Bet you didn't know that.
Interesting. No, I didn't.
Now, the iconic red lips that are on the poster, the opening monologue, if you will, I assume at this point, for the trailer that we watched earlier, those are Patricia Quinn.
Okay.
So, and actually it does say Patricia Quinn for the opening, but not the necessarily trailer. But science fiction double feature in the original London production of Rocky Horror. Patricia Quinn sang that. And she threatened to drop out of the movie when she found out O'Brien was going to sing it instead. So I can understand that, yeah. When it first opened up, Meatloaf and director Jim Sherman bought tickets for a screening somewhere in the Midwest. They were the only people in the theater.
You know, I actually love that. I love whenever I go to a movie and it's just me and whoever I'm with and there's just nobody else because I feel like I'm having a private screening all to myself. Like,
It can be fun having a virtually empty theater sometimes, and then there's some movies you want to actually experience with it.
I'm not saying it's not disappointing that they were the only two there, but for me personally, I love it having the big screen kind of all to myself. It happened whenever I went and saw Dread. I was in there all by myself, and it was great. Kind of made me want to have a home theater set up.
Yeah. I'm hoping maybe do a compare and contrast between the two Dread theatrical movies that we have. Because there's pros and cons to both of them.
It's true. I love the new one. The old one, it got sly. The new one is exciting. Like, it's action all the time.
Well, it was a definitely darker tone to it than the.
I think that's what I liked about it.
Now, did you know there was a direct sequel to Rocky Horror?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, sort of. There's kind of a spin-off sequel movie that was made, which had a lot of the original cast except Tim Curry coming back. But there was
disappointing.
O'Brien wrote an actual sequel in the 90s. The film was to be called Revenge of the Old Queen. And if you really want to search for it, bootleg copies of the script can be found out there on the internet. The script characters directly do reference Rocky Horror Picture Show, revealing the plot was actually a true story and aliens from the planet transsexual in the galaxy Transylvania are actually walking among normal humans on Earth.
Okay. That's interesting.
But I'm trying to find the follow-up actual movie that was made in 1981, Shock Treatment, although not a direct sequel to Rocky Horror, features the characters of Brad and Janet and saw the majority of the principal cast come back minus Curry. Although not as popular as Rocky Horror, the bonker Shock Treatment has gained its own cult following and is an enjoyable twist. O'Brien has decided to adapt it for the stage, and at the time of this writing, it was heading to the stage in the spring. I'm hoping I can get a date. So this is back in 2017, so unfortunately I don't have any follow-up if it actually happened or not. but I just thought it
It's always
was.
disappointing. I was gonna say it's always disappointing when something really good, like a movie comes out or anything really, and then they make a follow-up to it, so you can actually see the rest of the story, and then it just never happens. I feel like, I don't know, like you get so excited for it, but with Rocky Horror, to me, it had a nice ending. Like, I don't think it needed anything else. Personally, I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but just for me, I was happy with what we were given.
I would agree. It wasn't the all happy, tied up in a bow, happy ending, but it was a proper ending.
Mhm.
I love the little kind of almost throwback nod to King Kong
Mhm.
with Rocky carrying Frank up the radio tower. Like I already said, I think that ray gun that looks like a pitchfork, it's just funny. I love the film just because of its campiness. It's fun. The songs are just iconic at this point.
Mhm.
You know,
If you go on Pandora and you go to their Party Halloween radio, they play songs from Rocky Horror Picture Show a lot on there.
I can believe that because
Yep. My favorite one is Sweet Transvestite. I love that one.
at this point, if you think of the time warp, you immediately get the song playing in your head.
Mhm. Yep.
And for a movie that essentially flopped and then gained, cult status, like I said, with the props and stuff, that kind of started off with people kind of getting bored. And a lot of these traditions, if you will, this is pre-internet age, so it's amazing that it was just word of mouth that got around globally. And things, you might throw out a different line, and if it sticks, you'll actually hear people use it the next week.
Yeah.
When Janet puts the newspaper over her head,
Mhm.
there was a line that a lot of people still use when they actually watch it. I'm not going to necessarily repeat this because I want to keep this family friendly, but you can imagine it goes something like, buy a umbrella, you cheap something. So
You cheap wonderful woman.
yes, wonderful woman. So I really want to be able to go back and actually see this at a midnight show. Last year at the big haunted house in Reno, they were actually doing a midnight showing at the baseball stadium.
Oh,
I
that'd
wish
be
I would have
so
went.
cool.
Yeah, I wish I would have
Except for
went
if it
now.
was raining. If it was raining, it wouldn't be so fun, but it would be authentic.
It would be.
Then-
What's so iconic, and I wish we could safely do it right now, is because Halloween's going to be on a Saturday night. It's going to be a
Mhm.
full moon. If we could safely put this out on a big screen and just watch it all together on Halloween night, that would be just the perfect counter to 2020, I think.
It's true. It's very true.
But I can't think of how to logistically set it up so you can actually do that with social distancing, because
Make
this
everybody
is,
sit in a car and make it a drive-in theater.
then you're throwing rice up in your own car.
Throw it out the window.
Well, even that's not necessarily.
Honestly, I've been to drive-in theaters where everybody would kind of sit either outside on the back of their, like, if they have a hatch, they sit there, or they sit on the hood of their car and watch the movie. So, I mean, you could always do that.
Well, up in Reno, we do have a still operating drive-in theater, so I don't know. We'll see if they take my idea, if they hear about it.
Well, there you go.
So,
here's hoping.
yeah. So, overall, we hit everything you want to talk about with Rocky.
I want to go back and visit the where you said about it being pre-internet, like, where we didn't have, but where people actually still went outside and played, and we weren't on our phones all the time, and the information age hadn't quite taken off.
Right.
It is amazing that this movie has withstood the test of time and didn't just get like brushed under the rug and forgotten, especially with its really tight budget and it's like super being like an independent movie. Like, there are a lot of movies out there that I've heard of that kind of got lost in the age, but this one, everybody's heard of it. Everybody has either seen it or avoided it, or like they know about it.
Well, what's fun about Rocky, when you look at it now, you can almost make the case Frank's a Disney princess now.
I actually saw that on a meme, and I sat there and stared at it for like a good 3 minutes going, you know what? I'll take it. He's not a Disney princess. He is a Disney queen. Like,
there you go. Disney queen. Well, I mentioned it earlier with the Disney acquisition of Fox last year.
Mm-hmm.
People were concerned with how Disney might kind of say, okay, if this thing's going to go away, but they actually embraced Rocky Horror. And
it's going to make them money.
Well,
Same
still,
thing with
it's
Deadpool.
a moneymaker.
It's going to make them money, yeah.
How many other films from literally 45 years ago are still in theaters?
None that I can think of right off the top of my head.
So, I mentioned it, like I said, with cult status kind of films. Since they acquired Fox, public viewings of like things like Fight Club have slowly went away because it doesn't fit the Disney image.
It's very true. And
Rocky doesn't necessarily fit what you would think of as the Disney image.
But it has music, like everything else in Disney.
You could make that argument. It did kind of have a slip-in F word thrown in, and depending on which version of the film, there are a couple word malfunctions that happen.
Yeah, I'd be more, for Disney, I'd be more worried about the content of the movie itself. It's very not for kids.
Yeah, it's definitely not a kid movie, and honestly, my kids have not seen Rocky.
It's not. I want my kids to watch it when they're older, like way older, just to say that they've seen it and actually experienced it, or experienced the awesomeness that is Tim Curry in this breakout film, and the awesomeness of how musicals can be exciting and fun to watch, and they don't all have to be like kid based, like The Lion King or Mulan, or they don't have to be
not the typical Disney musical.
Yes.
And I just recently saw the 45th anniversary edition Blu-ray being offered in stores, which is, again, pretty astonishing. The only other movie that's even approaching that age that still holds the respect, I would say, of Rocky. Well, respect's kind of a loose term, but you got The Godfather and you got Star Wars, all in that same rough time period coming out. Obviously, Star Wars came out a couple of years later, but you think of those three from this window of time in the 70s, and they're still held in high respect.
Oh yeah.
Not
I love Star
necessarily
Wars.
at the same level to each other, but each one has its own fan base, I would say. And of these three that I just mentioned, Rocky's the only one that's a singular film. Like I said, there was a spin-off-ish movie in the 81, but it wasn't a direct sequel. And it's established itself with its own fan base. But, obviously we got the Star Wars trilogy. We have the expanded universe now. You have the Godfather.
Disney really jumped on that one.
For better or for worse, yes. I don't want to go too hard one way or the other with Star Wars, because I know I've already mentioned on other episodes that I've recorded that sometime in the near future I will be doing the trilogies for Star Wars, talking about the classic on one episode, talking about the prequels, and then the J.J. Abrams.
Can I sign up? I was going to say, can I sign up for that? Because I absolutely love Star Wars. And I've
Absolutely.
Seen them
I will let you know. You're already going to be number 3 at this point. So thank you.
Yep, anytime.
So with that, I think I just want to thank you for coming on and discussing this movie. I hope people go back, if they haven't seen this, to at least give it a viewing once. If you saw the Fox live feature, it, as you said, it's good, but it's not like the original.
No, it's not. Also, side note, if you are a Tim Curry fan and you absolutely love Tim Curry, the remake that they released, he is in it. Like I said, he's the narrator, or the criminologist, as they call him in the credits. This was after he had his stroke. This was really hard for him to do because he didn't want to be seen in public after the fact. If you are a diehard fan like I am, it is really hard to watch him go through his lines. It is really hard to watch him like that because, well, if you've seen all the films that I've seen him in, he's not the same anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure it's kind of how I felt when I saw him do his episode of Criminal Minds.
Possible. It was really difficult. Like,
from what I remember on Criminal Minds, they played to his strengths, and I don't want to, make it sound like his strengths are a disability. They really tailored that character, and he nailed it. But
well, yeah, he's Tim Curry. Come on.
For me, he's still Pennywise.
See, there you go. He's Pennywise. He's Nigel Thornberry. He's everything. He's the Girl Scout in
National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon. Part
yes.
1.
Yes. Yes. Oh man. My fiance was the one who got me to watch that movie. And when I saw it, he was like, "You're going to be so excited here in a minute." And I couldn't figure out why. Oh man, when I saw him, I was like, yes. And that's another thing. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, we kind of made reference to that scene or his character in a upcoming episode that'll be coming out later.
Okay.
So just a little plug, tease, etc.
There you go.
So you were just about to say something?
Yes. I was sitting there thinking about it, how you say Pennywise. The remake of it that they did isn't terrible, but it was another one of those, like, how dare you stand where he stood for me. Like, I don't know. I enjoyed his Pennywise.
Again, I don't want to steal it because just in case I do It versus It episode in the future.
Once again, I'll sign up for it if you're doing it.
Well, fair enough. Well, Lucy, thank you again for joining me on this episode, and I look forward to doing future episodes with you now. And everybody else, enjoy your next trip to the movies.
Thank you for having me.